I think that on a certain level, we all face the same challenges in our life. And what I've discovered after so many years of research, that if you really want to break down the concept of change, to change is to be greater than the conditions in your environment. And so many times our environment is controlling, for the most part, how we feel and how we think. And our response to certain people, certain conditions in our life, causes us to feel good or feel bad. And so if someone says, Fritzy, why are you unhappy? And you say, I'm unhappy because of these circumstances. What you're really saying is something in my outer world is actually controlling. I think it's controlling the way I feel and the way I think. The problem is that the response from the environment, typically, if it's driven by the hormones of stress, weakens the organism. So the environment over time begins to break down our very health. And so the brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact of everything we've learned and experienced to this moment. So most people wake up in the morning and they think about their problems, and their problems are memories that are etched in their brain that are connected to certain people and certain problems at certain times and certain places. And the moment they start thinking of their problems, they're thinking in the past. The challenge is that every one of those problems has an emotion associated with it, and emotions really are a record of the past. So the moment you feel unhappy, the moment you feel suffering, the moment you feel fear, now your body's in the past. So it's the thought being the language of the brain and the feeling being the language of the body, and how we think and how we feel creates our state of being. So many people reaffirm their state of being completely by the past. And so it only takes a thought and a feeling, an image and emotion, a stimulus and response to start the conditioning process. So we start to condition the brain and body, hardwire the brain, condition the body emotionally into the past. The problem is the body's so objective that it doesn't know the difference between the real life experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion we're creating by memory alone. The body's believing it's living in the same past environment 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So then the person gets up and then they run through the same routine as they always do. And in time, their body moves into a state of autopilot. Now their body is a set of programs, a habit that's dragging them into the same future based on what they did in the past. And so to change then also requires being greater than the emotions that have been conditioned into the body and the habituations that have been conditioned into the body in the predictable future. So we have to understand then that change requires not only being greater than the environment, but also being greater than our body, which is really, for the most part, been conditioned to be the mind. That's what a habit is. So then, to change then, to be greater than the body, to be greater than the environment, and be greater than time, instead of living in the familiar past, which is the known, and the predictable future, which is the known, you teach people how to settle into the present moment, and that's the unknown. And most people, that the unknown represents a very threatening place. And so when people start to do meditation, as an example, and their body starts looking for an arousal or wants to get up and do things, they think they can't meditate. But in fact, if they can settle their body back down into the present moment and lower the volume to that anger, to that frustration, to the fear, to the sadness, it's like training an animal. Now you're telling the body it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind. And our research shows there's a liberation of energy. The body starts expanding and relaxing into the present moment. Instead of getting up and checking your cell phone or doing something, and you notice that propensity, instead of responding to it and say, I can't meditate, you settle your body back down into the present moment. Now you're executing a will that's greater than the program, because most people lose their free will to a set of programs. And it's the act of doing this, to be greater than the conditions of our environment, to be greater than our body as the mind, and to be greater than time, that all of a sudden causes the person to start believing in themselves a little bit more. And that's when possibility starts to unfold. So let's talk about that, because this is, we work with Latin American prisons, and we do a lot of programs to help young people that have been incarcerated for all kinds of reasons to begin to make changes, to see the place where they're at as a place to retreat from their lives, and to begin to understand why they did certain things, what emotions that drove them to behave in certain ways impulsively and to think certain ways, And if they have the opportunity to return back into their lives, if they don't make those fundamental changes in their biology, the moment they return back to the same environment, it's going to trigger them emotionally to make the same choices unconsciously. So the structure of being in prison, of course, is a challenge in and of itself, because it is, in a sense, survival of the fittest. You have to mark your territory, and you have to mark who you are, and it's got to be loud and very clear. That's fine. But then you also have plenty of time to learn. You still have plenty of time to work on yourself. I always say, forget the experience. The experience doesn't change. And when you recall the experience, when you think about it, when you talk about it, it never changes anything. Actually, it refires and rewires the circuits in your brain. Overcome the emotions that keep you connected to that experience. When you can recall an experience without the emotional charge, that's called wisdom. Now that's a different game in and of itself, because now you can understand that there's room now for possibility in your life. So teaching people the science of true change and getting communities within the prison system to support one another and practice heart coherence in the jungle goes against everything that we've been taught in terms of survival. So forming new communities in the prison system, just like you do, teaching people really the science of change and transformation, and not just leave it there, but every day practicing that. Now here's the funny thing about it. The side effect of all of this is being happy with yourself. The side effect of it is now you're no longer responding and reacting to the same circumstances and the same situations in the same way, because as you sit there and your body's so wanting to feel anger or fear, and you become conscious of it, and you work with your body and train it back into the present moment. If you keep doing that, the side effect of that is energy moves right into your heart. We've measured that too many times to tell you that it's not the truth. Now, what does that do? It creates possibilities that you never saw before, because that change in energy causes you to see things no longer through the lens of the past, but seeing possibilities right in front of you. So people who are in the prison system, in community that do this, to build a new way of being. And what we've seen is more and more people that were once upset or frustrated start joining the larger community, because there's a movement that takes place. And my interest is to not only give people the tools to return back into their lives as a different person, but to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. So the what and the why allows the how to become easier. So then, even if they're in a prison for 30 years and they're happy, it's better than being in prison and being unhappy. And if they've learned the lessons in their life and possibilities around, who knows what could possibly happen to them.